We're all good. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the council meeting of the 17th of October. I see that there are no members of the public in the gallery, but for those that are online, welcome. Can I ask people to make sure that they've got their phones on silent? And I'll ask Councillor Rangiako to start with the karakia. Thank you.
Morena tātou, me karakia tātou. Tūtawa mai I runga, tūtawa mai I raro, tūtawa mai I roto, tūtawa mai I waho. Kia taua te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumi e hui e tauki. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you, Councillor. Meeting notices, the obligatory meeting notices, so I'll just read these out. Live streaming, Whakatane District Council are now live streaming our council and standing committee meetings held in our tōtara room within the council building. The webcast will live stream directly to council's website and YouTube channel in real time. The purpose of streaming our meetings is to provide a greater access to council debate, decision making and to encourage transparency. To those members of the public here today, all care will be taken to maintain your privacy. However, by remaining in the public gallery, it's understood that your consent has been given if your presence is inadvertently broadcast. Please be aware the microphones in our room are sensitive to noise, so please remain quiet throughout the meeting unless asked to speak. I especially welcome members of the public who are increasingly joining our public gallery. Probably don't need to read this today, but anyway, let's just go to the... Well, thank you for your interest in democracy and the processes that we have here, and thank you for continuing to show respect to elected members, staff and each other. Health and safety notices. In case of an emergency, please follow the building wardens or make your way to the nearest exit. The meeting point is located across the road at Peace Park that way. Bathroom facilities are located opposite the chamber foyer entrance, and that's the entrance off Margaret Mahi Court. I have no apologies registered today, and I do have a couple of councillors that want to make some acknowledgements or tributes. Councillor Rangiako.
Kia ora tātou. I'd like to acknowledge our Ngai Tūhoeko Mātua and Manawaru Tribal, Ngāti Whare and Ngāti Manawa for their kind hospitality and hosting our trip up to the Southern District, sharing their challenges and success and aspirations with the council, informing councillors and those working relationships. Also like to acknowledge the councillors who were able to attend just to get that lens into our rural, our isolated and into those communities, and also the engagement, and I know our communities appreciated that. Also extending it out to our governance team, our ELT team and our Tuia team for making that trip possible with a lot of learnings inside of that. Big buses, eh? Yeah, so, but the second one I'd like to acknowledge is also today the starting of our new senior Māori advisor, Ka Lakiriopa, which came out of our LTP. We were doing deliberations. There were a couple of things that we wanted, and I'm really excited to see what she brings to our team and also networking relationships. So, kia ora, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Boynton, I believe you have something you want to say?
Tēnā rā koutou katoa, mihi atu kia. Koutou, just wanting to acknowledge Ngāti Awa Te Toki Kapahaka Festival, which is going to be held over Labour weekend from the 26th of October on Saturday through and also Sunday, 27th of October. I just want to acknowledge that it's to my knowledge, is the 10 years since it first started, and that it was a vision that was launched from the iwi in 2009. And ko Ngāti Awa Te Toki te tangatanga I te rā, te nohe nohe I te wai, meaning Ngāti Awa is the aids whose bindings cannot be loosened by the sun nor softened by the rain. And it recognises their ambitions and aspirations of the iwi And I just wanted to acknowledge the significance of the 10-year anniversary, and that the first one was held at Whakatane Rugby Park, and that this one will also be held at Whakatane Rugby Park. And look forward and mihi to all those communities, those teams and those marae who have worked hard over recent months with their practices to be able to perform and celebrate their tribal connections. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Conflicts of interest. Do any members have any conflicts of interest to declare that are relevant to the business we're going to do here today?
Yes, Mr. Chair. One, I'd like to know that I'm a member of the Whakatane Fishing Club. Two, public excluded item 3.1 and 3.3, that I am the chair of the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'm also a member of the Fishing Club.
Yes? Same. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Public participation, there is none today. Confirmation of minutes. So we're on page 12 of the agenda. So we're basically, I need a mover and a seconder that the council minutes be confirmed as true and correct for the extraordinary council meeting of the 5th of August 2024 and the ordinary council meeting of the 15th of August 2024. If anybody has any corrections or observations they want to make before we put that on the table.
Happy to move.
Happy to
Mover,
second.
Deputy Mayor and seconder Councillor Boynton. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Against? Carried. Standing and joint committee recommendations and minutes. We're on pages 13 to 14 of the agenda. There's a recommendation from the Finance and Performance Committee. Since this requires the expenditure of funds, which is outside of the terms of reference for the Finance and Performance Committee, we will need to have a mover and a seconder for those recommendations 1 to 3. So that's that the council approve the carry forwards and that the council... there seems to be a bit of a difference between the agenda and what I've got in front of me, but so it's resolutions motion 2 to 4, is it? Yeah. So I need a mover and a seconder for those. Mover Councillor James, seconded Councillor Jukes. Any comments? Probably should not be necessary unless it's serious because it's already been through a committee. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. We're on page 15 of the agenda. So we are looking at receiving standing committee minutes, and this is for the committee meetings of the CEPSC committee of the 7th of August, the EER committee of the 8th of August, the Risk and Assurance committee of the 19th of August, and the Finance and Performance committee of the 19th of August 2024. It's just receiving minutes, so can I have a mover? Councillor Isles, seconded Councillor Puller. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Now we get to the mayoral and chief executive reports. So the mayoral report first on pages 16 to 42 of the agenda. I'm happy to take it as read or not read, whatever the case may be. I can answer any questions if there are burning questions. Councillor Puller.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think this is more a comment really, and I started reading and then stopped, and I'm concerned that perhaps, and you're able to write whatever you like in that report, but I'm concerned that you may be getting bogged down in the woes of the world, and rather than focusing on where we are today, and that worries me a wee bit because I think it's important that we focus on where we need to go. The woes of the world will always be there, and I just bring my view to attention.
Thank you, Councillor. I might rebut that, but I don't really want to get into a big discussion about it. Yes, it is my report, and I write it as much for myself as I do for anybody else. It's a record of where we are. The ways of the world, like it or not, affect us. I guess I could cite a pandemic that hit us. They affected us. Were we prepared? No. They affected this council. They affected the community. There are wars going on in the Middle East which could affect oil production and transport. Just think what would happen if that was cut off tomorrow. We, this council, would have to do something. So I think those things have to be on the radar. But yeah, it's my view, and I respect yours. So thank you for that.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I'd actually like to thank you very much for your advocacy and support for seeking our feedback on the remuneration that councils received and clearing the letter to the Remuneration Authority. Very much appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for that. And thanks for the input I got from some of you. So I think it improved the letter. And I hope that we can get some sort of feedback from the Remuneration Authority. And I also hope that other councils did the same thing, because if we were the only ones who actually made the effort, then that would, it's unlikely to generate anything. So we'll see what happens. I think there's a basic question of equity buried in there.
Just to follow on from Deputy Mayor, have we got a timeline as to when we may expect a response?
No.
Quite often we make these, and then we never hear anything further on it. So are we virtually in the laps of the gods to whether we get a response?
I'll tell you what I'll commit to doing, and that is that if I don't get a response by a certain period of time, I'll be following up with another letter.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor?
Thank you. I just wanted to return to Councillor Puller's comments, because I think it is useful for us to, as a council, to consider the strategic questions that face us in the kind of global environment that we operate in, because these things do affect us. But I think what we need to do is think how do we respond as a council? Does it make any difference to what we actually do? And ideally we don't wait till we've got a crisis, but we kind of preempt it. So I note that some of the things, I mean, you talk about climate change, but you also talk about threats to oil supply and things like that, and they're somewhat related, because the question is, how do we decarbonise our local economy, right, and our council? And I note that we've, dropped funding for active transportation and things like that, and I would hope that some of these questions make us think about where we do invest our money and recognise that we need to get off our oil dependence, or at least reduce it to some, as an organisation and as a district. So I think it is useful to discuss to consider these things, but I think we need to consider it in the context of what do we do? How does it change how we operate as a council?
Yep, no, absolutely. I mean, it's sort of subtly in there, really, is what it's saying. This is the situation we face, so we should start thinking ahead, not respond when it happens and go, oh, geez, we weren't ready. But if the oil supply does get choked, we'll all be walking. So that's going to force the issue. I guess there's a good side to it. But thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, I agree with what Councillor Tanzos has said, but I also agree with what Councillor Fuller said, in that these issues are global, which our central government deal with, and we're here to concentrate on what's happening in our district and how we can keep our district going with an eye of the bigger picture. But we need to be concentrating more on local than global.
Well, thank you for your opinion, but as I said, it's my report and it's written as much for me as it is for anybody else. And actually, I've had some quite positive comments from outside this room. What I was going to say was, if I go back to the pandemic example, we're going to be dealing with that later on in this meeting. So it's a situation that could have been foreseen, and you could do some advocacy in that area. So I'll stick with my guns, thanks.
I move that your report be received.
Absolutely, Councillor. I thought you would never ask.
Happy to second.
Councillor Isles, second Deputy Mayor. The Chief Executive report will be a welcome relief for you.
Absolutely.
And I don't expect to hear any whinging about it. Chief Executive. Oh, yeah, okay, yes, true, yeah. All those in favour?
Right.
Against? Motion carried, thank you. Chief Executive.
Morena tātou councillors. I'll take the report as read, rather brief, only been in the... Morena tātou councillors, sorry, microphone wasn't on. I'll take the report as read, somewhat brief, only been in the role for 4 weeks, but just a little bit of context about, the landing and some of the immediate things I've been focused on.
Does anybody have any questions for the Chief Executive? Councillor Isles.
Thank you, Your Worship. Page 48, item 5.6, first bullet point, the citizenship ceremony dates and the Mayoral Youth Awards yet to be included. Have we got youth awards for this year?
Next report. Next report.
Oh, sorry, have I moved ahead?
Yeah.
I have to.
Happy to move.
Happy to move or
Moved
second.
Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor Isles.
In anticipation.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, now we're into the body of it. Reports, council meeting calendar is the first report. So Emlyn, Charisse will be speaking to it.
Kia ora, Mayor Councillors. So this is our standard report, just
Page
lining up all the
45.
meetings for the calendar next year. And Charisse, I'm certain will answer any questions you have on the Youth Awards.
Thank you, Emlyn.
Thank you, Mielika. Morning, councillors. So as Emlyn has said, this is the report on the draft 2025 council meeting calendar, seeking a consideration and adoption today. A couple of things that I wish to highlight is that you will see certain event dates are yet to be confirmed and included into the calendar, including the Mayoral Youth Awards for 2025, as well as the citizenship ceremonies. There's the Te Mariwata dates and LGNZ event conference dates as well, still pending. I've had a look at their website yesterday and it's not available as of yet. The other thing that you'll note that's different in the calendar from 2023 and 2024 is that we are planning for the 2025 local elections. So there's certain timetable dates that we have been able to include, yet a lot more are pending and will be made available as we go through that journey. Happy to take any questions.
So it's a living document.
Correct.
No, if we make changes, we don't have to come back to a committee?
No.
Councillor Isles?
Thank you, Worship. Now, just harking back to that bullet point with the youth awards, why are they no longer in the program for this year? Are we rethinking them? Has the response been poor, or has there been little communication with the high schools to get these awards? I've had a few inquiries as to when are they happening, and I've said, well, I'll try and find out today.
Through you, Mr. Chair, my understanding is that this sits within the mayoral office. Heather has actively engaged with schools to get an indication whether they're interested in the Mayoral Youth Awards going ahead this year. Following little engagement, I believe 1 or 2 schools may have come back. The decision was made that Mayoral Youth Awards will not proceed this year and that we'll reconsider it.
Yes, I actually asked Heather to reach out to all of the high schools and find out what, we got a very, very lukewarm response. And I remind you of what happened last year where really we were struggling. So I think that, maybe we, by putting them on hold, we'll probably send a message. I mean, if the schools don't want it, then, what are we doing it for? That sort of thing. But let's see how what happens next year. They're not off the table.
Is it possible that we review the criteria?
Absolutely, yeah.
We have just reviewed it.
Yeah, but we might have to review it again if this is the sort of lacklustre response.
I think it's less about the criteria, but more about the busyness of schools and
Timing.
right time of the year, maybe.
So, Councillor Boynton and then Councillor James.
Oh, kia ora, thank you. I just in regards to the Mayoral Youth Awards, I just wondered as a councillor that supports our youth council, if there's a possibility in which in that role I'm able to support in the lead up to following for the next year to see how that progresses. Currently, we as the Youth Council is drafting up our plan to recruit for the Youth Council, which means engagement with the schools, and just wondered if there's a way in which we or myself in that role may be able to support that engagement.
I actually, on my agenda was a sort of a tour of all schools, talk about science and civics. The first school I tried to engage with was Whakatane High School, since I was a graduate of that place, and it has been really quite difficult. There's an appointment pending, but so far nothing much has happened. So I think, engagement with high schools seems to be quite difficult these days. I think they're running around like chooks with their heads cut off and they can't make the time. But yes, I have a rain check from one of them anyway, and I was going to start with one and pick off the rest in succession.
Can I respond? Some of the indications for the plan from the Youth Council is to be able to go to the schools, and that was also part of the idea to look at civics. So that may be something that we could work in collaboration with,
Well,
if you are also doing that.
Well, let's have some discussions on that, but it is really a bit off the topic at the moment, so let's just...
Okay,
Calendar.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Happy to move,
Councillor
Your Worship.
James?
Yeah, just to do with the upcoming elections, I don't know whether we address it here or about the boundaries for the wards. When do we look at changing
Review.
or reviewing them?
Representation.
Through you, Mr Chair, so this report is specific around the meeting dates in terms of local elections and the timetable and specifics around that. We plan to bring a report to you prior to the pre-elections that will cover all necessary requirements to be considered.
Okay, thanks.
Deputy Mayor, followed
Thank
by
you.
Councillor Boynton.
Thank you. I'm just on page 46 where the table is of the meetings, and yeah, it's good that we've got 8 weekly and quarterly meetings. Is there a reason why community boards couldn't move for every 2 months as well to kind of keep in sync?
Through you, Mr Chair, so the schedule that's there and the frequency of the community boards is what was set at the onset of the committee structure that was developed at the start of the triennium. So unless there is a desire to change and that goes through council for decision, it will remain at that frequency.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Boynton.
Just in regards to, I realise that this is about the calendar and setting dates. It mentions the election. Is it worth mentioning that in that election process that there is also a referendum? And does that have any impact on the dates or what is needed to be done prior to those dates?
Through you, Mr Chair, no impact on the dates that are set there, and just to note as well that those are only some of the key dates that have been recorded in there. There's a larger, more comprehensive table with more key dates as part of the local elections that we will cover in a separate topic.
Also, I think that it's page 48 in regards to the LGNZ and Te Marawa. Indications from National Council have indicated that the event would be held close to July because it is an election year. But that still needs to be confirmed in writing. However, National Council has indicated that the LGNZ conference in Te Marawata would be held closer to July, and it is likely that it may be, it will be in the South Island. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boynton.
Councillor Tanchos.
Thank you. There's a meeting of the council scheduled for the 2nd of October. And that's within the voting, like the postal votes would have gone out by then, won't they? I'm just wondering if that's a good idea.
So again, the timetable we will need to review to make sure that the alignment of those meetings and
Include an amendment that says...
sits accordingly. However, from looking at the 2019 triennium elections, we've been able to sort of dictate that meeting there as the last council meeting to deal with any urgent business, but we will make sure that working with that timetable, we'll adjust that as necessary.
Yeah, okay. I think it'd be better if we didn't have council meetings within the voting period.
Through you, Mr Chair, we've noticed that also a number of extraordinary council meetings needed to be called to deal with urgent business quite close to the
Right.
elections. They tentatively have put that one in place.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I think we're ready to move this motion, and it should be understood that this is a living document and that changes will occur from time to time as required. So can I have a mover, Councillor James, a seconder, Councillor Boynton, that the council meeting calendar 2025 report be received and that council adopts the council meeting calendar 2025 as appended to the council meeting calendar 2025 report? All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Thank you.
Thank you, council members.
Thank you, Charisse. Item 10.2, we're on pages 52 to 54. Appointment of a director to Bylaws Limited. RV will speak to it.
Good morning, Your Worship, Councillors. So it's a relatively short paper, but I'm happy to briefly go through it. So this paper is seeking the appointment of the Chief Executive to the role of Director of Bylaws. So Bylaws is a council control organisation that operates in the Bay of Plenty, and it's governed by its director, and it provides benefits through improved level of service, reduced cost. The 9 directors are also the current chief executive of their respective shareholding councils. And so this report essentially is about formalising what's been in place in the past and recognising that we've got a new CE. And council is asked to formally appoint Stephen Pedia to the role of director on the board of Bylaws Limited. And that options provide an opportunity to influence the direction of Bylaws to ensure it's providing benefits to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. Questions or clarification? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Good morning, Harvey. I'm trying to not give the chief executive any extra jobs. Is the CE the right person that should be sitting on Bylaws versus we now have a procurement person? Considering Bylaws is all about procurement, wouldn't that make more sense?
My observation would be that it's coherent in terms of governance structure, looking at each other council have their CE represented. So we are just aligning with that.
It was the previous CE that was on this before, so
Correct.
I'm just thinking outside the
should be
square.
fairly. I was guessing there weren't not going to be any questions.
okay.
Anyway.
Right.
If there are no further questions, can I have a mover? Councillor Isles moves. Councillor Rangiako seconds. I guess there's no discussion, is there? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 10.3, pages 55 to 58 of the agenda. It's a change in of the recovery manager, similar sort of procedural paper. David Bewley, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, so as you said, this is simply because Steve has been promoted to the chief executive role. It's not appropriate that he remain as a recovery manager following an event. So Lainey is our recovery manager at the moment with Steve. We're suggesting that Steve be replaced by Sarah Ellis, one of our senior policy analysts. I think you've met her a few times here around the committee room. She has relevant qualifications and some experience in civil defence, including practical experience on the ground in Japan following an earthquake. So we believe she's an appropriate appointee. The process is you agree, if you'd like, to her appointment. That then goes through to the coordinating executive group and then the joint committee, which is made up of mayors for that formal appointment process. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions on that one? Councillor Boynton, and then Councillor James.
I just wanted to ask, with the role itself, is there any requirement for it to be a advertised vacancy or job, or is this just a process of internal appointment?
Yeah, essentially, it's an internal appointment process, similar to controllers. So they are key positions in the response phase and in the recovery phase. It works practically better if it is an internal person of some seniority, simply because they know the culture of the place and how it all works, working with the team of people they already know. So it's not an external appointment. It can be, but we tend not to do that. Most councils will promote internal people to the role.
Councillor James.
Right, I was only going to say that I'm happy to move.
All right, seconder, Councillor Isles. All those in favour for those two recommendations?
Aye.
Aye, 3, sorry. Against? Carried. We're at section 10.4, appointment of observers to Limited Partnership Board, pages 59 to 61. And RV will be speaking to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Your Worship, councillors. We are here to ask council to appoint the chief executive of the council as council observer and the mayor as alternate observer to the board of Te Rawi Erenga Waka Limited Partnership. The harbour development project is being developed and managed via a limited partnership construct, and each of the partners have appointed a director to the board. And each of the shareholders have been invited to have an observer present without voting rights at the board meeting. And so this option enables the council to observe board matters and report back as required to the wider organisation. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, RV. Question from Councillor Tanchos.
Thank you. I got a little bit confused with the report because in the recommendations, so I'm reading it as saying that it's appointing the chief executive as the delegated authority to the limited partnership, and secondly, as an observer on the board of Te Herenga Waka. Is that correct? And the mayor as an observer, as an alternate observer.
Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I can. Each of the shareholders can appoint one person to the limited partnership, the 3 shareholders being the Lands Trust, the Crown and Whakatane Council. And the limited partnership has duties and obligations, kind of like a company, but it's not a company, although it is set in legislation, limited partnership frameworks. And then the second part is, we also have the opportunity to appoint an observer who can observe at the board meetings. So they're 2 different functions, and quite often at the board meetings, it's probably good to have an alternative for the board meetings. Hence the proposal that the mayor is the alternate observer at the board meetings.
Yeah.
So that's the distinction between the 2.
So just a supplementary, if I may. So I guess our previous chief executive would have been the delegated authority on the limited partnership in the past. So it's just transferring that role to you.
Yes.
But then the observers are a new function. Is that right?
No, they both existed before, but what we were unable to find is actually the report that delegated the authority for the chief executive to do that.
Yeah.
But the previous chief executive was operating as in the limited partnership.
Yeah.
However, the limited partnership had never had a meeting, so it probably didn't need to be formalised. But the chief executive was sitting as an observer on the board.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor James.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea that we've got both CE and the mayor as alternate, but do we have to specifically name the people, or could we just appoint each position, the chief executive and the mayor because sometimes, like now, CE's changed.
Yeah, it's a very good point, and actually it is more about the role than the individual. So yeah, that could be an amendment to the recommendation, and yeah, I don't see a problem with it, do you? Harvey, Laney?
No.
Don't think so. Because it is about the position,
Yeah.
not the person.
Yeah.
Councillor O'Brien.
Just as, if we have a primary observer there, can the alternate sit in as well? Or if we have a primary observer, can we have one representative, or can we have the alternate sit there as well?
Having attended only 2 of the board meetings, normally each of the shareholders has the right under the partnership agreements to have an observer on the board meetings.
Yes.
But it's in the board meetings, there tends to only be one observer from each of the shareholders. So I think the norm is that one observer from the shareholders attends, so you wouldn't have both of us going to a board meeting. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
I just wondered, what is the problem with having another observer there on our behalf?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I'd probably have to go back to the board and ask them, what their preference is. The contracts allow us to have an observer in the meetings, and yeah, my observation has been that the other shareholders have only had one observer in the meetings. The observers can change, but it's always only been one in the meeting at that time.
Well, shall we include that as an action point that we will check whether
Yeah,
thank you.
observer is possible? Councillor Tanchos, and then
I was just going to observe that if the agreement allows us to have an observer, that suggests that you're allowed to have one observer, and the fact that you've got an alternative means that you've got like a panel of 2 who can be that observer. But from what you said, that would sound like one observer.
yeah. The thinking behind having an alternate in the paper was that there would always be an observer from the council as a shareholder in the board meeting.
I mean, alternative is a stand-in in case he gets run over by a bus.
But I think it is worth asking whether we can have 2
Yeah,
observers at
yeah.
a meeting. Why not?
Okay, Councillor Boynton.
I think my question may have been answered because it was similar. It was just to try and seek clarification that as a delegate that you could be there, Steve, but finding out whether or not that you as an observer can also be there as the mayor. It was just trying to seek that clarification. Or are you one and the same, which is what Councillor O'Brien asked.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No.
We will just make a quick change to these recommendations and remove Steve Purdy's name and my name from there so it remains non-specific to a person. If everyone's in agreement with that?
Do we need to
Yeah.
move that as an amendment or no? Okay, all right.
So move Councillor Isle, seconded Deputy Mayor, that the appointment of observers to Limited Partnership Board report be received. 2, the council approves the appointment of Chief Executive Officer as council's delegate. The rest is the same. And 3, that council approves the appointment of the mayor as alternative council observer. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. We're at item 10.5. Eastern Bay of Plenty Spatial Plan, Project Governance Group, revised terms of reference. Nicholas Woodley will be speaking to it. It's on pages 62 to 69 of the agenda. Recommendations are on page 62. Nicholas, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everybody. We also have Ben Petch online. He's the project manager for the spatial plan.
Welcome.
I'll keep this succinct. The former project structure was that we had a project control group, which is essentially a sort of a GM level. Then there was a project leadership group, which had chief executives, and then the project governance group. And what we're recommending here is to speed up decision making, is to remove the project leadership group. from that process, and so that the project control group will be reporting directly to the project governance group, and that enables just more efficient decision making for the spatial plan project. And that involves an amendment to the terms of reference, which are in the appendix to this paper. And I note that this is also going up to the other councils that are involved in this project and has already been up before those councils. So the other 3 councils have endorsed this. But it's essentially a procedural matter to try and make the process more efficient for decision making in the spatial plan project.
Thank you, Nicholas. Could you just summarise what the difference between those two groups was intended to be? I mean, I guess there's a lot of overlap is what we're saying anyway, or that the functions of one can be subsumed into the other. But were they that different in the beginning? I mean...
there was a slight difference. I guess the project leadership group was a bit more operational, rather than strategic, but a lot of those operational matters can be addressed through the project control group, with those strategic governance matters addressed through the project governance group.
Okay, thank you, Nicholas. Any further questions or clarification? Councillor Boynton?
Just wanting to clarify, with the removal of that and those Crown parties and also iwi in the project leadership group, there is still support in there for iwi to have input in the project governance group.
Yes,
That's
yes,
correct.
yes.
So the risk of two relationships is not necessarily harmed.
Yes, that's correct. So through these changes, there are no entities are removed from the decision making at all. It's just simply streamlines it.
Thank you.
Any further questions before I ask for a mover and seconder? No, can I have a mover? Councillor Boynton moves, Councillor Dennis seconds. That the Eastern Bay Plenty Spatial Plan Project Governance Group Terms of Reference Report be received and the Council adopt the amended terms. For the Eastern Bay Plenty Spatial Plan Governance Group, any discussion? Nope. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. We're doing great, folks. 10.6, change to fees and charges. Totara Events Space. And Cass Richards, is it, will be speaking to it. Pages 70 to 73 of the agenda, and the recommendations are on page 70. Thank you, Cass.
Good morning all. The purpose of this report is to include additional fees to the fees and charges document for the after hours hire of the Totara event space, and that's these rooms in the Civic Centre. I will take the report as read and happy to answer any clarifying questions.
Councillor Dennis, followed by Deputy Mayor.
I've got 2 questions, thank you. In regard to your Civic Centre room hire, and it states there at the bottom of the chart there on 2.2, whatever it is, it talks about for the Totara room, general use $500 per evening, for a registered non-profit, a charitable organisation $240. What about a resident association or something like that? Do they, because they're part of local government, even though we don't recognise them, we only recognise community boards, and I'm talking about the youth council, do they have to pay the same thing?
So,
Can I respond?
Oh yeah, sorry.
So the fees and charges that you've seen in the structure, Councillor Dennis, are entirely consistent with the revenue financing policy and our fees and charges document. So all we're doing is aligning the hireage of this with your current policy. So under that policy, then those organisations wouldn't qualify for a discount. If you want them to, then we'd have to review your fees and charges policy and your revenue financing policy.
So the youth council now going to have to pay $240 per evening plus a $200 bond?
as they would if they wanted to hire any venue in town. That's under our current policy. All we've done is just take this space and align it with the current policy. That's correct.
Well, I think we need to revisit it then because there's something wrong with that. Also, in regard to concierge, I mean, something in there. Does that mean when any group hires this place at evening, we have to have a staff member here to provide the kitchen facilities and to make sure it's locked up afterwards?
Correct. We would have to have staff on site. There's obviously a health and safety requirement, and there is a risk of access to other parts of the building. So best practice would be that we'd have staff on site. That's correct.
Thank you. Just to let you know, I'll be voting no for this in regard to this because I don't see why the Youth Council should have to fork out $200 bond plus $240 per evening. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I'd like to challenge the price structure. It seems very expensive, and I've just looked at a couple...
We'll get to the debate,
Okay.
because I think there's a bit to debate here. But if you've got any questions or clarifications about the report...
Well, it was how did they arrive at the price structure?
Okay, so we'll do that in a minute. Councillor Jukes, a question?
Sorry if I've missed it, but by looking at this, it looks like we're not making it available for during the day hire.
That is correct. There was a lot of risk to council meetings and schedule. As soon as we book in a event that a business or community group want to do, we didn't want to have to cancel at late notice because of council meetings or previous engagements. So there was a lot of risk to leasing out during the daytime. So we've done evening hire, and we've got daytime free meeting rooms in the customer service area.
Thank you.
Councillor Tanchos?
I had two questions. One of them was actually Councillor or Deputy Mayor Emmerich's question, which is how was the fee structure arrived at? I mean, I heard it related to our current fees and charges, but I was also interested in how those actual numbers would come to, although I'm not critical of it. And the other question was I'm a bit confused now with Councillor Dennis's questions around the Youth Council and if they're going to have to now pay to meet here. So I'd like some clarification because I'm a bit confused about that.
So you have to forgive me. What I picked up was the Residents and Ratepayers Association, but the Youth Council, if it was part of a staff event and it was actually a council meeting and Councillor Boynton and our staff were with them, then that would be part of council business. So there wouldn't be a charge for that. But something like the Residents and Ratepayers Association, they're a different group, so there'd be a charge to them.
Yes.
Just on behalf of Councillor Isles, who has been asking for this since the building's been opened, so would the Keep New Zealand Beautiful Committee, which is a committee of council, would they need to pay or they wouldn't need to pay if they wanted to use it in the evening? Not sure if it's Emlyn or Cass.
At the moment, it's been designed around council business and council meetings. So we haven't actually looked into associations of council because you could use a lot of groups that are associated with council. And then our concierge services don't get paid for, so to speak. So it would have to be looked at a completely different way. So council events and council, it's run by the events team. And in that space, I would say the events team work outside of their hours and I'm assuming compensated for that. So, yeah, it would have to be something we'd have to look into.
Thank you.
All right, if there are no further questions, I'll get someone to move and second this motion and then we can debate if it's required. So Councillor Puller moves it, Councillor James seconds it. I guess I'm questioning, well, it's not really a question, but given that when we refurbished this building, we refurbished it saying that it was, this is your building, this is the people's house, and which gets, I think, to what Councillor Dennis was asking. And I've told people who don't have the capacity to pay that money that they could come here and use our spaces. So I'm just wondering what people think about that. I accept that if it's after normal hours, then there's some issues of security and staffing and stuff, but given how we promoted it, or I thought how we promoted it, then I wonder why it is that we're charging, especially those numbers, which a lot of people, if you hire the little theatre, I think it's like $50. And I've had people complain about that, but anyway. Councillor James, discussion?
I didn't think the little theatre was only $50. I thought it was a lot more than that, but I don't know.
I might be wrong. I might be wrong.
No, I'm not, but I liken this space to the same as a community hall and that, which is council facility and that, but they're always rented, you always pay a hireage for them. So, and normally with a community hall, we don't involve our staff or anyone looking after it. So, if we don't have a reasonable charge here, it just goes on top of rates, doesn't it? The rates bill just goes up even higher. So,
Councillor Dennis.
In regard to that, Councillor Olson, Manawa Justice Society, they have their meetings at the Manawa Hall. They don't pay rent for it. Each collective group use the Lions room at the Eachcombe Library. They don't pay rent for it. The edit group in Eachcombe, which keep Eachcombe beautiful and do all the gardening, they use the Lions room at the Eachcombe Library. They don't pay rent for it. So I don't quite agree with you. I'm not saying that everyone should have a place for free. I agree with those charges for that. But if they're related, and I know those groups aren't part of an official council schedule because we only go down to community boards, but those groups help keep our districts going. The Manawa Justice Society, the Marata Resident Association use the club rooms for nothing. The edit, I mean, you look at the edit, they're responsible for huge amounts of beautification projects in Eachcombe. So I think there should be a difference with groups like that that are working with us, trying to do betterment for the group that would save us money in the long run. And I don't know how you do it, but I think to charge that sort of money is not on.
Emlyn.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to point out, there is a section in the report. There are rooms within the building that people can hire for meetings free of charge, and they're available on certain days of the week out in the Customer Service Centre, and they're ideal for meetings of up to, say, 12 or 14 people, and they're completely free of charge. The other reason for this charge, one of them was for that space you're in now was so it aligns with our, as I said, our fees and charges and our revenue financing policy. And the other reason is when we spoke to the business community and other similar venues like REAP, Top Shelf and Lightning Hub, they were very keen to see us charge for that space because obviously it would be competitive with them and people would be hiring our space rather than theirs. So that we had strong feedback from the community that would impact on their revenue.
Can I just jump in there? So is this a cost recovery thing? I mean, or is it a for profit? I mean, those numbers
we're designing it to break even.
Just designed to break even. Okay, thank you. Councillor Puller.
Thank you, Your Worship. That's my understanding as well. We're not here to make a dollar, but we're just going to cover our costs. But I don't think it was ever envisaged they would be free, this part anyway. So I think what's been submitted is fair, and I think you'll find that throughout the town and district, I mean, I know Councillor Dennis has reminded us of some places, but most places you go to, you've got to pay. And, because there's a cost of electricity and all sorts of stuff, and so I think what we're doing is reasonable. And as Emlyn has said, there are rooms that are available for free, so I think we're covering the ground. Thank you.
Not sure.
Emlyn, the rooms you're talking about for free that can sit between 6 and 14 people, are they only during the day?
Correct.
They're not an evening meeting?
No.
Councillor James and then Councillor Boynton.
Yeah, just a question, Emlyn. When we have a function here and that, and we've got alcohol, do we require a special licence, liquor licence?
People would have to get their own liquor license. That's right, isn't it, Cass?
So that's an extra cost?
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just think they're still a wee bit expensive, because like the mayor, I thought we were being sold that this was a community facility. Yes, we've got to recover costs. We are actually quite a bit more expensive than Reap and Manuka Tutahi, almost double what they are. So I'd be interested to know whether anyone would pay those prices, and whether we might find after 6 months no one does, so we might need to, how easy would it be to review the price down if that was the case? Not sure who that goes to, you, Em?
We can have a look again. I mean, we did, when we went through this, we factored in all the standard costs around salaries, power, lighting, all those sorts of things. So, I mean, we can review that and see if there is any room for manoeuvre. But as I said, we have tried to design it for break even, and I would point out that it is a pretty premier space as well for an evening business networking event. But we can certainly review that, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Boynton. Finally.
Yeah. Kia ora. Similar to Deputy Mayor and also other councillors was around the interpretation and the previous promotion of the spaces as being accessible for our community. We were told that quite a bit in part of it, its opening, and also too, myself included, have promoted it to our community that these facilities are open to them to be able to use. I have heard from communities, groups who have tried to book the rooms based on the information that we've received and then put out, and been told that they cannot and that they are not able to use the rooms, which was disappointing to hear. And so part of me is glad that we do have something come across, because now we know what has been happening, and that during the day it is used primarily by the council staff themselves, and that you've got something here for the evening. The other parts I have concerns around relates to Councillor Dennis, and is that if we are going to place prices and fees and charges in this particular building, does that set a precedence for our other buildings? I know that there are other groups that are part of working in collaboration with the council, for example, Arts Whakatane, who use other rooms in other buildings such as the museum and also the library. So part of me is concerned, one, around what's been interpreted by the public. I'm glad it's been clarified here. Second, the costs. I believe that is quite high, and we may price out those groups or charities in which we work alongside. And thirdly, just worried about setting a precedence, and if that may go on to other buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Chief Executive wants to say something, and then Georgina would give
Georgina going after me would be perfect, because I know what she's going to say. I was just going to summarise some some of the key points and just bring it back in a bit. I just wanted to clarify that this paper is about this part of the building, not the other meeting rooms. So it's not all of our facilities, it's just this part. That it relates to after hours, not during the day. During the day in our buildings, there are often staff around, so after hours has a whole different set of complexities. That councillors do need to think about how we might compete with other buildings. So actually providing stuff for free is actually in direct competition with other organisations that are also trying to recover costs. This is actually like a high quality in the scope of it. This is actually a premium facility in Whakatane at the moment, and it is fully kitted out, and all of these services do cost money. After hours comes with additional costs, so you just got to remember that, because people need to be here. And Officer Hatch has said that this is predicated on a cost recovery approach for after hours in this part of the building. And the other thing I've just heard, and I guess I wanted to clarify, is I think that the staff are saying in the report that if it's a council-related event, there's not a charge. If it is a non-council related event, then there is a charge. And that's because if it's a council-related event, for example, we're hosting an event in this facility, then there are going to be staff here, and that solves a lot of our cost recovery problem of having to put staff after hours in this part of the building. So I just wanted to clarify those couple of things. Thank you. And then Georgina, I think we'll talk about the other facilities and
Officer Fletcher.
Thank you. So page 37 of your fees and charges. So we do currently charge for the rooms at Te Koputu and at Takitaki. They're used quite frequently. It is a bit of a grey line, if council staff are there then and involved as we frequently are. Then there is room for a little bit of exercise of judgment. But I think in this case, Emlyn's paper, it's clearly aimed at where people are coming in and council staff would not otherwise be there. And so there is an extra cost for security that we need to, and to help with all the facilities to have a charge. So the charges are consistent, in particular the evening charges, with what we charge at both Te Koputu and Takitaki.
Councillor Jukes.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Tenshos, after you.
Thanks. Yes, I'm going to reluctantly support the recommendation. My three basic reasons are is that there is a cost for the usage to council, and we do need to recover this. I don't think we want to be undercutting other providers of other venues, and if it is a council-related event, there is actually no charge. And, a little bit of that.
Councillor Tenshos.
Yeah, thank you. I support the comments by Councillor Jukes there. As a general commercial rate, I'm quite happy with these. It is a premium venue. It's a great venue, and for people to do networking or fundraising or whatever events in here, then I think I'm entirely happy with those charges. I suppose I did have a question, and I think it's probably to do with the cost of having people here, but there's a separate charge for non-profits for the use of the entire space, but not for part of the space. And I would have thought a lot of the time people would just want this space probably. But I guess that's to do with the cost of the staffing. My concern was around what you might call civic events or civic organisations. And I suppose I feel a bit reassured because what I've heard is that if there is something, if it's a kind of council-related organisation or function, that there'll be some consideration of that. I wonder if if there's a councillor involved, with whether that's kind of the same. I think that's worth some consideration because, you know, we are involved in lots of civic organisations. But having said that, I think we do want to see it become available. I think we need to set some fees and charges. I do think this is reasonable for the general commercial rate, and there is some consideration for civic events, so, yeah.
Officer Fletcher, would you like to comment on if there is a councillor involved?
I think I said before, it is a little bit grey. You would likely still need some staff support, but, you know, we exercise our judgment often as general managers. I get no one ever wants to pay a fee. I get many requests for every venue that we charge for. And so there are times where we use best judgment.
Thank you. Councillor Boynton and then Councillor Dennis.
Thank you for that last clarification, Georgina. Because I'm leaning towards where I may support this recommendation, as long as it is couched in a way to our general public to make clear those facilities that are available, that are free, and that also that from hearing from the general manager that there are times where judgment or discretion can be made concerning certain organisations and their working in with council on possibly collaborated events or joint events. There are some groups there who work on events and with both council and the volunteer group are working together. So for me that alleviates a way where we're trying to ensure those charitable groups and volunteer groups who may not have high revenue are able to still be supported. So that's where I'm leaning towards, as long as we can make it clear that there are the free facilities available and the full range, so that people don't seem to think that, oh, we had community spaces and now you guys have just put up the costs and we'll never be able to use them. So, thank you.
Councillor Dennis.
Yeah, likewise, I want to thank Emlyn and Georgina because they've clarified some of my concerns, so I'll probably vote yes because council-related things, civic-related things, including that. And one example was I helped set up the Coastlands Residents Association group. They call it something different now. And the initial meeting was over in the room over there. But because it's set up, it was really good. They only ever had the one meeting here. They've now found their own place and it's all good. It was that initial setup. So so I now agree with this and I agree the grey area shouldn't be too grey or else, but I'm glad that there's a little bit of area there where there can be some consideration. So thank you.
Councillor Puller and then the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Just as a member of the project steering group, I just want to reiterate that it was never envisaged that the rooms would be free. So I'm not sure where that's come from. But anyway, the other point is that I'm not sure what staff charge out rate is, but if it was $50 an hour, wouldn't take long to chew through the money we're talking about here. So we need to think about that. Thank you.
Thanks for your worship. Yeah, I'm happy with the justification that we've given for it. I just have a clarification question. Our insurance is all okay for evening hosted events? Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I was a bit conflicted at first as well because it's been a public building that people have invested $14 million in refurbishing. It's not going to be probably viewed very well, but given that we're talking about just a limited part of the building, and that we do have free rooms that can take up to 14 people. Do we have any room? Is there any chance we can make rooms available that are slightly bigger than that? Or
During
is
the
full-
day or
Yeah,
after hours?
during the day.
I'd like to answer that, please. At the moment, no.
No.
You'd have to go through staff areas to get to them. So we've made rooms available in the customer service area because they come off the customer service lobby. They also have no access to staff working areas, so they're secure and safe for our staff and customers.
Is the booking system up and running for it?
Yes, we've been doing it for a number of months, and we've
The
had the
website.
Keep Whakatane Beautiful group in regularly.
And I guess as part of the comms, it's useful, should be emphasised the security aspects, because this building has been subject to being burnt down, and there was a theft here not that long ago, last year I think it was. So I guess if we can message it properly, then it should be okay. So I guess we're ready to. Any more discussion? No. Well then, can I have a mover and a seconder for this motion? Mover, Councillor James, seconded Councillor O'Brien. Yeah, I guess there's final discussion? None? Yeah, sorry? Oh, yeah, I've had a mover and a seconder, all right. Yep.
Through the chair, the mover was Councillor Fuller, seconded by
Yeah.
Councillor James.
No, move Councillor James.
You've already done it.
Oh, I'd already done, okay. All right, all those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Morning tea time.
Where did Andrew go? He did excuse himself. He didn't, he said
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're at section 10.7, Council Policies and Bylaws Work Programme Update Report, presented by Lainey Woolsey, and we have Georgia Mischewski. Gray. Welcome. All right. So we refer to pages 74 to 85 of the agenda. Recommendation is on page 74. Take it away, ladies. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
You people. Staff.
I think it's Harvey's name on it, isn't it? Or is it my name? Is it my name?
Don't
Okay,
fight,
well,
don't fight.
if it's my name on there, Morena Tato, I would like to introduce Harvey Caravel, but also indirectly Georgia Mischewski-Gray. This is her first council meeting. She's a wonderful addition to the strategy and policy team, and she's worked very hard on this update for you.
Thank you, Lenny. I'm happy to go through the report. As Lenny mentioned, Georgia has put together this report with various policy owners, and she may be able to answer some questions. Essentially, there are two parts to this report. The first one is about informing the council on the policy and bylaw work program, and the second part is about discussing and revoking the COVID-19 policy. So the first part, informing council on the policy and bylaw work program. So usually we go to council and provide the next 6 months work program. In this occasion, we've looked at the next 3 years. The time frame for the review of the policy and bylaw align with the long-term plan. We've made some good progress in the last month. I just wanted to say that around some of our policies and bylaws. So whether it's adopting some LTP policies, progressing the public place bylaw, the freedom camping bylaws, the road planning policy, the diversity and equity and inclusion policy. So that's to name a few. We've got still obviously quite a few policies that you will see in the report that are listed for review. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but I'm happy to answer a question if you've got any. In terms of bylaws, most of our bylaws are due for review by 2028, so that seems to be quite far away, but reviewing bylaws requires significant amount of work in reviewing them all at the same time in one bunch is probably not the best, so we are suggesting to move forward the review of some bylaws. We are aware of some issues for certain bylaws. So the dog control bylaw, for example, we are proposing to review this financial year. And we've got 4 other bylaws that are listed, which is the beach bylaw, control of animals, port and wharves bylaw, and the alcohol control bylaw to review in 2025-26 instead of 2028. So we are trying to phase the review to manage capacity, essentially. So that's the first part. Any question on this?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You sort of alluded to the fact that some bylaws give you no problem at all, and some we know are problematic. So obviously they're problematic, we need to do something, but are we just reviewing because it happens to fall on a time scale, or do we get to this and say, well, this is due here, but it's not giving any problems, so therefore why we don't need to get involved in reviewing it? Or is there none of that thinking there?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. That's exactly the case. So the first thing we look at, we've got a review date. So unless we are aware of some issues that are coming through us before that review date, if we are aware of some issues, we review them earlier than the review date.
Right, okay. All right, thanks for that. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Good morning, everyone, and welcome, Georgia. Just in terms of internal facing policies, like we recently did the tree strategy, and there was to be informed and submit to the tree strategy, they wanted to see the tree policy, and that caused a little bit of consternation with that group. So when we see here, like with the asset management policy is an internal policy, do we just like need to put a little clarification there that it doesn't go out for consultation, or it doesn't, because it's just start for management that review it, isn't it?
Yeah, internal policy, we are not consulting with the community on internal policy.
So it doesn't say that there, so is that just a clarification that's easy to pop in?
Maybe I can help. In councils, there are two types of policies. There are internal-facing policies, which are largely about how an organisation runs. So you might have policies around recruitment and things like that. And then a council has, a set of external-facing policies, which the public will have a direct interest in because it affects their community. So some of the policies may be about how we operate, but they are the ones that actually the public have an interest, or ratepayers have an interest, or the public have an interest in influencing when they get reviewed. So something like an asset management policy would be one of those ones where, yeah, it's about how we manage our assets, but actually a council will want to get, or may want to get, the public's views and opinions when they're shaping that policy. Yeah, so there may be some that are sort of sitting on that grey line.
Right, thank you. And just a supplementary, if that's all right. And I know that we've been putting our policies that are coming up for review on the website. So once these are approved, they'll all get listed similarly.
Yes, that's correct. That's our intention.
Right, great, thanks.
If I could just add, it may be possible to include some kind of definitional interpretation on the website around internal, external. Some of them are a little bit grey, but we could do our best to try and indicate which ones, what internal versus external means, if you think that would be helpful on the website.
Thank you.
Can I ask one about the COVID-19 policy that we're revoking? I'm not sure how long it took to write it in the first place. Obviously, the next pandemic won't be called COVID-19, will it be called COVID-26 or something? But what's the advantage of revoking it? Or maybe making it more generic, perhaps, using some of the learnings? I mean, even if we revoked it, we could still revive it.
I might ask Officer Hatch to speak to that, as that did come up in our executive discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Lainey. That's a good point, Mayor, and we did discuss it. I suppose a lot of the issues with that policy, it was very, very specific to the health advice around COVID-19 from the government. So we're just not sure how relevant that would be. You know probably better than anyone else how, very distinct responses are to pandemics. So we think we've got a lot of learnings, particularly how we generate policy and get it through the organisation quickly, and using that government advice. So yeah, it's not really relevant for anything else. So it's probably a good practice to rescind it.
Or revise it to make it more generic. Because some of the things a lot of what's in there would be generic.
We could do. It is covered within other policies around emergency management, and yeah, we could look at seeing whether we do have a specific pandemic policy, but I'm quite confident that that we could respond quickly enough and have a real specific policy that was relevant for whatever we were dealing with.
Okay, any further questions? Councillor Isles?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just the diversity, equity and inclusion policy at the bottom of page 76, is that a council created policy, or is it a directive from central government? It's just that I've been asked a couple of times over the past week as to who would have initiated it. Would it have been us as a council, or are we following a directive from central government?
My understanding is that's us. Emlyn might want to add a few words on that. We had made some commitments to some groups to develop that policy, and so we're going for consultation soon on that policy, but it's not like a central government legislative requirement.
Thank you.
It's not.
It's not.
Councillor Boynton?
Sorry.
Thank you. Slightly following on from
Emlyn, did you want to respond to that?
I just wanted to say the origin of the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy was in council's heads of agreement with the Y group, the Whakatane Accessibility and Inclusion Group. That's where it came from.
Okay,
Right.
thank you. Councillor Boynton, back to you.
I knew they did.
Thank you. Just following on from Councillor Isles, one slightly, was it says that the policy, the diversity policy, will be adopted in 2025. At our recent meetings that we've had, did we only receive that policy? Did we not adopt it already?
You adopted a draft for consultation.
Oh, okay, thank you. Just following on, sorry, my actual question was around the COVID-19 policy, and I just wanted to, I suppose, find out, is there any implications by revoking the policy on staff, their ability to work from home, or are there any costs associated? Do they still receive leave if they have COVID? You know, are there provisions already within our policies which isn't going to impact them? Also, with that policy, does that apply to governance if around, and it might be different if you can confirm, around being able to to attend meetings via visual audio and be able to vote and participate in meetings?
Through you, Chair. So the 2 points to that. The first one is rescinding the policy doesn't have any impact on staff at all. Everything is covered in other policies. The second question, Charisse, I'm not sure if Charisse is in the room. There was the ability for councillors to participate fully in meetings remotely, I believe, was made a permanent fixture of legislation.
Okay.
It's covered under the Local Government Act now.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that it didn't, bump this one. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Just on page 76, I thought I'd misread something. I thought this one said dangerous, affected and insanity buildings policy, and I was thinking, gosh, that's a new one, rather than insanitary. My question is, you've got MPs recommended we review it. How do they know whether we've got insanitary buildings or not?
They won't know.
Pardon?
They won't know.
They won't know.
No, but we have to have a policy, and it's due for review. So Emmy doesn't know that we how many insanitary buildings we have, because I think we have none. Yeah, so I don't quite get the connection to.
Oh, no, I was just interested that was prefaced on that part there. It kind of led you to believe that we have to send a report in or something.
No, it'll be based on an audit that MB has done, and one of the regular comments on the audit will be you need to review your policies.
Right across all councils.
Yep.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Sorry.
If there are no further questions, can I call for a mover and a seconder for all three of those recommendations? Mover, Councillor Isles, seconded Councillor Rangiaho. Is there any discussion? Debate? Pretty straightforward. All right then, let's put the motions, all three recommendations. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. We're at section 10.8, approval of the public places bylaw and freedom camping bylaw. Pages 86 to 144, recommendations are on page 86, and Holly, I suppose, will be speaking to it.
Your Worship, Councillors, if that's okay, I'll just do a very quick introduction and then Holly will go through. So just a reminder around the context. So we had the hearings and deliberation on the 3rd of October, and the Living Together Committee took into consideration the feedback received from consultation in August and September, and debated both the public place and the freedom camping bylaw. So, as you've mentioned, Your Worship, today Council is here to approve the public place bylaw and adopt the freedom camping bylaw. This will enable the implementation of this bylaw by staff ahead of the semester. And Holly now will go through the paper and the key change we've made following this deliberation. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, Council. Since the hearings and deliberations bylaws, we have incorporated your feedback and present today the final versions of the Public Places Bylaw and the Freedom Bylaw. The changes to the Public Places Bylaw include the removal of cultural fires from the new fire prohibition provision, the inclusion of reference to the beaches bylaw so that they are read in conjunction with each other, the removal of coal from fires that are exempt. We've also looked into changing clause 4.1F for Councillor Dennis after the deliberations, which is not included in today's agenda. The change we are proposing is that a person shall not dispose of a body or part of the body of an animal in their possession into a public place. Within the Freedom Camping Bylaw, we have included the full definition of what freedom camping is, which includes the exemption of those experiencing homelessness. We've also included an explanatory note that reinforces the position that we would not be taking enforcement against those people. On further engagement with iwi, we have included an explanatory note that specifies the nohoanga sites excluded by the bylaw, and we have removed the ability to freedom camp at the Edgecombe domain. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Holly. You guys have finished. Can I just ask about, well, I made a song and dance about it last time. The definition of homelessness, it's defined in other places perhaps, but wouldn't it be, I didn't see it in the, maybe I read it too fast. I didn't see it, might as well build it into the actual document if it's not there already. I didn't see it.
Yeah, so what we have, I have looked into this quite extensively since the last meeting. What we have done is use the definition within the actual Freedom Camping Act. We aren't able to use a definition outside of that act because this bylaw is made within that act. So it doesn't explicitly define homeless people, but it excludes homeless people from the definition of freedom camping.
Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. We're going bylaw by bylaw, or you're just taking the whole lot in one hit? If you look at the one about the freedom camping area, and you talk about the recommended option, I totally agree with all your advantages, you know, like the proposed freedom camping bylaw allows the council to manage and regulate, et cetera, making sure they're clean, all that. So I agree with all that. What I'm concerned about is you go to the disadvantage and there will be fewer areas where people can freedom camp in the district. And I think, you know, like you had a couple of submitters saying that we could do really well by being a camper-friendly place and all that sort of stuff, but we seem to have restricted and reduced quite a bit, and I appreciate a lot of people say not in my backyard, but has there been any thought about how we can actually provide some more areas, or is that going to be an ongoing process? And I accept that there's three different categories of freedom campers, like someone said, you know, your grey nomads and your tourists and the others. But I still would have thought with your grey nomads, you try and find somewhere, but also those people that have to live in a home on wheels through no fault of their own because they can't afford it. Is there any thought amongst staff as we've gone through this of actually providing somewhere for folk like that?
To your first point, within this review, we did undertake a work to determine where people could, where they currently can't. So our open spaces team looked through all of our parks and reserves throughout the district to see where the most appropriate place was for freedom camping. Within that piece of work, they determined that Edgecombe Domain was the most appropriate. However, through public consultation, we then determined it wasn't. So that piece of work was done, but we didn't find that there were any more appropriate places than we already have identified. Yes.
Have we thought about going in partnership with some private landowners and encourage. I know there's a pop-up site down McLaren's Road out of Edgecombe where people are allowed to park there overnight in someone's front yard who was camper friendly for $5 or $20 a night, and those are popular. Has staff thought about maybe partnershiping with people to do that? Or I'm just concerned there's a lot of people like the lady who was living at home and all she wants is not have to move every 2 or 3 days. She just likes somewhere solutions and a shelter and all that. And I wonder if we could work with someone private.
Everyone's looking at me.
I'm happy to speak if
You're happy to speak to it? Yeah, I wouldn't mind saving my comments. Okay. Or not using my comments.
Because they're so valuable, good to save them.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. There are a number of campgrounds where people can stay overnight for about $25 a night and have access to obviously showers, toilets, laundry. So our Whakatane Holiday Park, Awakiri, the hot springs there. So there are a number of places where people can go, not on a permanent basis, but you can stay at the holiday park here, I know, for 3 weeks before you're asked to leave for a certain period of time, and then you can return again. So in terms of infrastructure available to people who are choosing to live in their motorhomes, I think there are options for them available. I think in terms of asking us to do more, no, we haven't looked into that. It's a big topic. It's verging on a central government topic, and what are we doing to provide an appropriate range of housing and services to people? So,
Going back to the home, it says here that freedom camping infringement and penalties cannot be applied to individuals who are homeless. So this bylaw doesn't really apply to homeless people, right? I mean, we've been through that before. So a homeless person can park in one of these spots and declare themselves as homeless if they fit the definition, and they're hunky-dory. And so that woman that you were speaking about, she fits the definition of homeless, as far as I'm concerned. So that's all good. And the other thing I see here is that, following up from Councillor Dennis, is that regrettably we've ended up on the US path where, you know, at least they've got trailer parks, seem to have trailer parks everywhere. And maybe we need trailer parks for homeless people, so who can access a camper or a caravan or something like that, but can't afford a home. It's a problem that's going to be increasing.
Can I just respond through the chair to say that this definitely to me sounds like a piece of work that's related to a strategy. So actually, what is the approach that you want us to take as a district to this issue? Because also it was raised in deliberations that those people who don't have a permanent place are also not ratepayers in the district. And I'm not saying that we should then therefore discriminate against them. I'm just noting that actually takes quite a bit of thinking about how you want us to address that. I don't know if it actually fits into the open spaces strategy, but it's probably, we would need your direction as to whether we need to do some work around how we strategically address the issue as a whole.
Well, I would say yes, but I don't know what the others think, but we can do that in the debate phase if you want, talk more about that. Are there any questions, more questions? Councillor Dennis?
In page 115, where it talks about Nohai, I know you've named Ngāti Tūwharetoa, etc. My understanding was Ngāti Rangituhi had one on the western settlement. Could we just check up on that?
Yes, we can. This inclusion was quite late from Ngāti Awa, so we still are in conversations with the rest of the iwi to ensure that this is correct. Because it's in an explanatory note, we can update them when those
When we
that
receive them,
becomes
sorry.
known.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, George.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Tanshos?
Thank you. First of all, I support Lainey's comments about that some of these questions actually need a bit of a strategy because we kind of, I think we're unclear what we're trying to do here, what we're trying to achieve. So I think it'll be useful to do some of that thinking. And I, for one, do support Councillor Dennis's comments around would like to see more provision. So, you know, in Schedule 1, it would be great to see more places actually listed in Schedule 1. But recognising that, you know, we've had some of those discussions and there's some difficulties around there. So recognising that, there, you know, it does take a bit of work and whether that's a high priority for us, given that we've got a lot of other things on as well. So there's all of that. Having said that, I just had a question around, I'm just looking at the definition of freedom camping, which says means to camp other than at a camping ground within 200 metres of an area accessible by motor vehicle or blah, blah, blah. Should that say in a public place? Because presumably it doesn't apply to private places.
I've taken it directly from the Act itself, but it does apply to local authority areas in another area of the Act itself, which we've said in the bylaw as well. So it doesn't apply to private land.
So where is that clear?
Sorry?
Where is it clear that it doesn't apply to private land?
In the actual bylaw itself, we say to local authority land.
Oh, I see, okay. True. Could we just put it in, just to be clear? In the definition? Because it, you know, if someone's reading it, they'll go to the definition.
So you're asking for local authority area to be defined within the interpretation section?
I'm asking for in the interpretation section for where it says freedom camping, to insert, it says means to camp other than at a camping ground, which itself, a camping ground is often private. So I just think in there to have a clarification that means to camp in a public place or on a local government thing or something. Just
Yeah.
thank you.
Councillor Isles?
Thank you, Your Worship. At this submission stage, we had Helen Morris raise concerns over the dump station at the Edgecombe Domain. She sent me actually a video yesterday showing that the college kids are now drinking out of the taps and playing Splash Splash. Have we got a report coming back as to whether we feel that's the appropriate place for that dump station to be located and a possible alternative site? It doesn't seem to be anything in this report.
The dump station is new in its location and I can provide an update through email as to the process that was followed. I can confirm that my staff are looking at health and safety improvements, but at this stage we do not support moving it, but we will provide all of you with the detail around the process that was followed and the engagement with the community regarding the location.
If I may, a supplementary, just to follow on, her big concern actually was the play centre, which is adjacent to the dump site in itself, and that the children literally come straight out, and the risk of them actually getting themselves entangled in the drain itself. But as I said, she's now reporting that even the senior kids are drinking out of those taps.
Thank you, Councillor Isles. If you've got something in writing, I'd be happy to receive it. And Ian
Basically
Malone.
just what I've said, yeah.
Councillor Dennis?
In regard to Councillor Isles' comment, I mean, there's lots of kids play splash with water through public taps all over the place. I think that's actually not aligned to the issue. The real issue is the location of the dump spot at that.
Some of that water's not treated though, is it?
It would be town supply water, I would have thought.
I think there's two different taps.
Okay.
Councillor Boynton?
Kia ora. Just a small statement. I just want to acknowledge the mahi that's been done and the changes that have been made. I just wanted to pick up on page 89, 4.4.1, and regarding the cultural fires, that cultural fires, including hangi, have been removed from the proposed exemption within the fire provision. I'm just wanting to ensure that this is only related to those particular public areas that are identified as part of the bylaw, and it does not relate to those hangi that whānau in residential areas or in marae would be holding. So just trying to make sure that there isn't a misinterpretation by the public that the cultural fires have been removed from blah, blah, blah. So I just wanting to make sure and clear that the removal of the cultural fires as part of this is really relates to those on public places identified, like, for example, Rex Morpeth Park. If somebody was want to dig a big hole for have a massive hangi at Rex Morpeth Park, that's part of the prohibition. However, there is a part in there, I'm just trying to clarify that this is the interpretation, that there is a process of going through permits with council should there be, for example, a specific matariki event or big cultural event where that might happen, where there might be a hole dug at Rex Morpeth Park for hangi, but there is a process available for that cultural fire.
Yes, through you, Chair. This only applies to public places, which is also defined within the bylaw itself. So, yeah, hangis in private property, marae, are completely fine. And you're right that if a member of the public wanted to have a hangi on a public land, they would be able to apply for a permit from council.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I think some time ago we decided there was no need to say through the chair, but if you want to say it, I won't stop you. Can I just triple check something at the risk of sounding like a cracked record? Homelessness can't be defined in there because it's already in the legislation that we refer to. Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, so what we have taken is the interpretation from the Freedom Camping Act.
Yes, but you can't put it in the policy document. I thought I heard you say you can't put it in the policy document because it's already referred to in the Act, which you do reference in the document.
Yeah, so the
Is that what you said?
Yeah, the interpretation that we have is what freedom camping is, what it isn't, and who it excludes. The Freedom Camping Act doesn't explicitly define what a homeless person is or isn't, and so what we've done is use their interpretation of what freedom camping is or isn't, but not explicitly define what homelessness is.
Is there anything that prevents you from putting it in there? Because at least when someone picks up the document, say, well, who's a homeless person? Do I class? And you're going to send them to look up the Act. If it's not explicitly, am I just not getting it?
Well, we wouldn't point them in the direction of the Act. We could, but that definition is already within our bylaw.
I'm just thinking of making these things easier for people to read. I mean, how many people do you think, before they go and start a fire or want to start a fire on the beach, go and say, oh, geez, I better go and have a look at the bylaw? I mean, I had this situation. Somebody asked me, am I allowed to have a four-wheel motorbike, or whatever you call them, ATRs, on the beach? And, how do I know? Okay, so I've got to go and look it up somewhere, and I can do it, and I found it, but other people find that difficult. So we really need to make these documents easy to read, I guess is my point.
What we are planning to do, sorry if I may respond, is update our website as well, which provides greater clarity on what our bylaw is saying, which we could do there. We'll also include our interactive map on where you can and cannot freedom camp to. So that should hopefully provide more clarity to the community.
Councillor Tanshos and then Councillor Boynton.
I was just going to say in response to your question, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard is that because this bylaw is being kind of made under an act of legislation, which itself has a very loose definition of what homelessness is, that we can't put a more stringent definition because essentially we'd be kind of preempting the act, right? We can't, the act is superior, we can't.
Yeah, no, I got that. What I was saying is put the same definition within the document so that somebody.
But you have, haven't you? They have.
Yeah, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
I must have missed it. All right, forget it then. Yep. Councillor Boynton.
I was just replying back, which is, I believe they have used the definition, I was just answering back already in there. That was all.
Okay. Councillor Dennis.
Just a brief clarification for me. I noticed in that, I remembered in the last briefing we had, Holly, that we were talking about people are allowed to park in residential streets on the side of the road. Obviously, we're talking about people who are travelling and need to pull up for a sleep. When we look down Murawai Drive, it's red all over the place. Are they not allowed to stop on the road down in those areas and also along Ocean Road in Ahopi? We've stopped them going onto the grass and the reserves and all that. Are they allowed to park up on the road?
Not in those specific areas. Those specific areas we've included within the bylaw to say that you cannot.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions? One more, Councillor Jukes. Okay, well, let's have a mover and a...
I've got a comment on that.
Okay, have a comment.
I
Why
just
not?
wanted to say thanks to the staff because I thought from all the feedback we gave, you've summarised it and come up with the appropriate changes from what we recommended, and I'm very happy to move the
Okay.
report if I can and support it.
You can, yes.
Second
moved,
it. Thank you very
seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Right, discussion, if there is any. Councillor Boynton.
I am very happy to support the recommendations that have been put forward. As a comment, I would like to acknowledge the work that has been done by the staff in receiving the feedback and working to improve the current bylaw. In particular, I am satisfied that the bylaw now is clear in regards to what is not freedom camping and how that is able to better support those whānau who are homeless. I'm also supportive of the removal of the cultural fires because there is a process where if there is a need for cultural fire that it can be applied through a permit for the council. So I just want to commend the staff on their mahi and also that I will be supporting the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion? Just off the topic slightly on homelessness thing. I've asked Karen Summerhays and Frank Begley for a meeting on homelessness, well, a few months ago. So I'd just like to invite any councillors that feel strongly about that to feel free to, indicate their desire to get involved. I think it's a problem that, interest rates are about to go down to zero again, maybe, and that's going to put upward pressure on housing, which is going to make this problem more and more complicated as we go. So that was the only comment I had. Yes, Officer Hatch.
There is a briefing on homelessness next Wednesday.
Perfect. There you go. All right, thank you for that. Councillor Tanchos.
I'll just back Councillor Boynton's comments and say it's been a long grind for you guys. Well done, we got there.
All right, well, if there's no further discussion, we've had a moved and seconded, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Passed, thank you.
Well done.
to go for lunch, so I presume we can move into public excluded mode and get through some of the routine stuff there.
Can I say just a couple of words?
Sure.
Before we leap into the papers, but maybe you want to move through them.
Well, let me get a mover and a seconder to move into public excluded. Mover, councillor Isle, seconded, Deputy Mayor. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Passed, thank you. the resolution so you can all fall asleep while I read through all of it. Oh. All right, so I have to restate all the following resolutions, so that's quite a bit. So just 1, that the council receive the report Commercial Land Management Update. 2, that the council confirms the public be excluded from consideration of this report on the grounds set out in the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 under sections 48(1)(a)(I), section 7(2)(g), as withholding information as necessary to maintain legal professional privilege, and contains that the report and confirms that the report remain in public excluded. Also, public excluded. 2, the Strand additional information. 1, that the council 1, receive the Strand additional information report, and 2, confirms the public be excluded from consideration of this report on the grounds set out in the Local Government Official Information Act, blah, blah, blah. 2, that the council confirms that this report be released to the public on the Chief Executive's approval after completion of the project. Pahuta Street update. 1, that the Pahuta Street update report be received. 2, that the council confirms that the report be released to the public on the Chief Executive's approval. Funding update October 2024. 1, that the funding update October 24 report be received. 2, that the council confirms that the report be released to the public on the Chief Executive's approval. And that's it, folks. Thank you very much. We can close the meeting, correct? Oops.
I just have one very important item. I haven't prepared a paper for this item, and there may be some questions of clarification before we move into discussion. But this is actually Georgina's last council meeting. And I think it's probably timely to acknowledge Georgina and her length of service here with council and the great work and achievements that she's made. And wish her all the best from November the 22nd and after. And she will be dearly missed. But here's an opportunity for everyone to ask her a few questions.
Point of order, point of order.
But there's an amendment.
You haven't prepared a paper, so I'm afraid you can't bring this to the table. Yes, Georgina.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, thank you. There's no need to say anything. We've still got Living Together Committee, so yeah, I still have more mahi to do. But thank you, Steve, for your recognition.
Yeah. Thank you, Georgina.
Well, I'm going to make some comments, but I'll wait for the Living Together Committee.
Yeah.
Pardon?
I'm going to make some comments, but I'll wait for the committee.
Okay, yeah, all right, fair enough. All right then, closing karakia time. Councillor Rangiako, would you do the honours, please?
Long day, whānau, so let's close this. Kia whakairea te tapu, kia wātea te ara, kia turiki whakatahai, kia turiki whakatahai, haumi e hui e,
Ah, dear.